On this season of Destination Earth, Akane and I head to the southern United States to get a jump on summer. On this adventure, we had the chance to visit Tennessee, Mississippi, Virginia, and North Carolina. Join us as we explore everything from the busy streets of Nashville, Tennessee, to the historic antebellum homes of Natchez, Mississippi, as we check off a few new states on this heat-soaked journey. Where are we off to today? Let's find out. Good day, everyone! In today's video, we're exploring the Rock and Soul Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. Prior to going to the museum, we spent a few days exploring the historic downtown and learning a bit about its history and strong musical connections. Wanting to learn more, we dove a bit deeper into its history that we'll explore in part in this video. Let's begin in the 1900s in the rural South. To set the stage, let's recall that states like Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas saw a rapid decline in population from 3.7 million to just 965,000 from the period of 1930 to 1969, as the United States went through a major depression and World War. During these times, Southern farmers who mostly grew and picked cotton expressed their trials, tribulations, and hardships in the form of music. Blues, country, and gospel were just some of the ways to pass these hardships, but also led to ways to express their hopes and dreams for the future. Life on land was hard. Farmers spent many days plowing their crops, walking dozens of miles every day with the help of only mules, which are a donkey-horse hybrid known for not only their stubbornness and unpredictability, but their incredible patience and sure-footedness and dependable work nature. By the 1940s, almost every farmer in the area had them, as life without them was almost unbearable. By the 1950s, over 1.5 million mules could be found spread across many of the farms, only to be replaced later by machinery. During the nice weather, farmers would spend their free time on their porches, engaging with their neighbors by talking, singing, and playing. Depending on the farm, musicians had access to guitars, fiddles, diddly bows, spoons, washboards, or simply tapping their legs for percussion. It was out of these simple instruments that soul music sprang. You see, religion and religious music was important across the South. Weekly worship, revivals, and gospel quartets provided live music and recordings. On the radio, religious music competed with country, blues, and big hit tunes. At the beginning of the 20th century, musicians in the Mississippi Delta found ways to unleash human-like wails and screams from their guitar, producing music that once again captured the labors, loves, and frustrations of the area's poor farmers. In the 1920s, commercial music firms discovered a market for country, blues, and gospel music. Music was one of history's most important aspects of penetrating the divide between the black and white communities of the United States, as music seemed to transcend the boundaries of segregation, and recordings and radio accelerated the musical exchange that brought black music to the ears of their white counterparts. When the last generation of sharecroppers arrived in Memphis, they introduced performance practices and variations that inspired new waves of musical innovation. In the years after World War II, the Memphis population soared, reaching nearly 500,000 by 1960. At that time, over 312,000 were white and 184,000 were black. Well, Memphis was divided into distinct black and white sections. Blacks and whites often saw each other through a patchwork of neighborhoods, where black and white children often crisscrossed neighborhoods on their way to and from their segregated schools. Memphis's musical interchanges often began in these mixed neighborhoods. Beale Street, which we saw in our last video was the main pub, bar, and party location of Memphis, was also the main commercial and political space of white Memphis, despite it being in the heart of the African American life and culture in the city. It was a place that offered a haven from the often hostile spaces elsewhere in the city. In addition to the many black-run businesses located here, Beale Street was also the center of black music in the city. Here, music streamed from clubs and cafes and accompanied passerbys as they made their ways down the streets. A stunning variety of music from jazz, blues, and gospel could be found here. Places like the Daisy Theater offered amateur talent nights, where famous musicians like B.B. King got their start. As music availability began to spread, jukeboxes began to appear in speakeasies during the Prohibition in the 1930s. The term juke evolved from an African expression that meant wicked or disorderly, and juke joints in town happened to be taverns favored by the black community. Since these juke joints were often associated with music and dancing and rowdy behavior, the term jukebox stuck with the mechanical record machines that were often found here. After the war, jukeboxes became wildly popular for listeners of blues, country, soul, and rock and roll music. By 1955, over 550,000 were found across the United States and consumed over 25% of all records produced at the time. With music becoming so normalized across the country, it didn't take long for music to become an integral part of everyday life. No longer was it limited to a select few who could be near professional singers and musicians, and was no longer an event that was limited to the front porch. Now, music is a big part of my personal life. I grew up around music. My dad played guitar, and eventually, so did I. I was in our school choir. I played instruments, including the clarinet and alto saxophone in my high school band. In my 20s, I spent the better part of all my weekends at a local pub and bars listening to live music. And now in my 30s, I attempt to find musicians who tap into that part of their being to produce great live music. Music is more than just some lyrics or vibrations. We connect memories with music, and music can even be used to heal. Now, whether you prefer jazz, country, rock, or even death metal, music has been an important part of our lives. Although I'm not one to be spending a fortune on concerts or festivals, I do seek out great music to create great memories, and that's exactly what we found in Memphis. Music, regardless of culture, form, or instruments, is one of my favorite ways to interact with the location, and one form of cultural experience I never wish to give up. You can get a sense of some of the music we experienced here in Memphis in a video I'll link above. Until next time, take care.